The bullies pick on the new girl. A big mistake. She's an unbeatable fighter. The moment Alex stepped through the heavy glass doors of Riverdale High, the familiar sensation of being watched crawled across her skin like ice water. The main corridor stretched before her, lined with trophy cases that gleamed under fluorescent lights, their contents speaking of decades of athletic victories and academic achievements. Students clustered in groups along the walls, their conversations dying mid-sentence as she passed. The whispers began before she'd taken 10 steps into the building. New kid, transfer student, heard she got expelled from her last school. My mom said she's from Sacramento. Outsider. Target. It was always the same at every school, a script written in the DNA of teenage social hierarchies. By now, after 3 schools in 2 years, Alex knew the routine as intimately as she knew the 17 pressure points that could incapacitate an attacker. Keep your head down, speak only when absolutely necessary, blend into the wallpaper of high school existence, and above all, never reveal what you're truly capable of, not unless you have no other choice. If only the group of seniors watching from across the hall knew what those choices had cost at the last school. If only they knew about the hospital visits, the lawyers, the sealed court documents, the reason her father had uprooted their lives yet again. Alex adjusted the worn canvas backpack strap that was already digging into her left shoulder, the weight of new textbooks and old secrets equally heavy. She moved toward the administration office with practiced invisibility, keeping her pace steady, her posture neutral, not confident enough to challenge, not weak enough to invite predation. Yet even as she tried to fade into the stream of students, she felt the weight of their stares, like physical pressure against the back of her neck, between her shoulder blades, along her spine. 3 schools in 2 years. Portland first, where everything had started to unravel, then Sacramento, where it had all gone so catastrophically wrong, and now Riverdale, a town so small it barely warranted a dot on the California map. Dad had promised this would be the last move. He'd stood in their empty apartment just 3 days ago, surrounded by cardboard boxes labeled in his neat handwriting, and sworn they could make it work here. Just 2 more months until graduation, he'd said. Then college, where she could truly start fresh. Alex wasn't holding out much hope. Hope was a luxury she could no longer afford. The administration office smelled of burnt coffee and photocopier toner, a combination that seemed universal to every school she'd attended. The secretary behind the counter looked up from her computer, peering over rhinestone-studded glasses that caught the light like tiny prisms. She was a woman in her 60s, with hair dyed an aggressive shade of auburn and lips painted a coral pink that had gone out of style sometime in the previous decade. "You must be Alexandra Chen," the secretary said, her voice carrying that particular tone of forced cheerfulness that administrative staff perfected over years of dealing with sullen teenagers. "We've been expecting you." "Alex," came the automatic correction, practiced and firm. "Just Alex." The secretary's lips pursed slightly, creating a network of fine lines around her mouth. She shuffled through a stack of papers with unnecessary vigor. "Well, just Alex. Here's your class schedule, a map of the campus, and your locker assignment. First period starts in exactly 15 minutes. I've assigned one of our student ambassadors to show you around today." She gestured toward the doorway where a girl had materialized as if summoned by the mention of her role. The newcomer had copper hair that caught the morning light streaming through the office windows, turning it to burnished gold. Her smile was genuine, reaching her green eyes in a way that suggested either remarkable acting ability or actual enthusiasm. "Hi, I'm Megan Walsh," she said, extending her hand with the confidence of someone who'd never met a stranger she couldn't befriend. "Welcome to Riverdale High. I know it probably seems overwhelming, but I promise it's not as bad as it looks." Alex shook her hand briefly, noting the calluses that suggested either gymnastics or theater work. Probably the latter, given the dramatic flair in her gestures. "Thanks for showing me around." "No problem. I actually volunteered for this. We don't get many new students, especially not seniors. Let me see your schedule." Megan plucked the paper from Alex's hand before she could respond, her eyes scanning quickly. "Oh, cool. We have 3 classes together. AP English with Mr. Abernathy, Chemistry with Ms. Rodriguez, and surprisingly, PE with Coach Miller. Though honestly, everyone tries to avoid Miller's class if they can. She's intense." As Megan led the way through increasingly crowded hallways, maintaining a stream of commentary about teachers, classrooms, and unwritten rules, Alex took mental notes that had nothing to do with education. Emergency exits, 4 visible, probably 2 more in the back of the building. Open spaces, the main corridor, the cafeteria, the quad. Bottlenecks, the narrow hallway by the science labs, the stairwell near the gym, the passage between the main building and the arts complex. Security cameras, minimal, mostly focused on the parking lot and main entrances. Blind spots, numerous, especially behind the buildings. Old habits died hard, and some habits kept you from dying at all. "This is the junior-senior hallway," Megan explained, gesturing broadly at a corridor lined with taller lockers painted in Riverdale's colors of blue and gold. "Technically, anyone can use these lockers, but there's kind of an unspoken hierarchy. The athletes get the ones nearest to the gym. The theater kids cluster near the auditorium. The AP students fight over the ones closest to the library. It's like a weird social geography." They paused at an intersection of hallways where trophy cases displayed decades of accomplishments. Megan's expression shifted, becoming more serious. "Okay, real talk for a second. There are some people you should probably avoid if you can. Not that they're necessarily dangerous, just complicated." "Complicated how?" Alex asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "You'll see soon enough. They usually make their presence known pretty quickly to new students." Megan's cheerfulness returned, though it seemed slightly forced now. "But don't worry, most people here are actually pretty cool once you get to know them." The tour continued through the science wing, where the faint smell of formaldehyde lingered from the biology labs, past the library, where a handful of students were already hunched over textbooks, and finally to the arts complex where music drifted from practice rooms. Megan kept up her commentary, pointing out which water fountains actually worked, which bathroom stalls had broken locks, and which vending machines occasionally dispensed free snacks if you hit them just right. The tour ended at Alex's assigned locker, number 2847, located in a relatively quiet section of the senior hallway. Megan checked her phone, her expression shifting to mild panic. "Oh shoot, I need to run to the library before class. I forgot to print my essay for Abernathy, and he's super strict about physical copies. Will you be okay finding room 204? It's just down that hall, 3rd door on the right after the water fountain." Alex nodded, already spinning the combination lock to test its mechanism. "I'll be fine, thanks for the tour. No problem, I'll see you in English." Megan disappeared into the stream of students with surprising agility, weaving between groups like she'd memorized everyone's morning patterns. The corridor was beginning to empty as the warning bell rang, its harsh electronic tone echoing off the linoleum floors. Alex spun the combination lock twice more, satisfied with its smooth action, before opening the locker. The interior was surprisingly clean, with a small mirror magneted to the back wall and a forgotten pencil rolling in the bottom. She began transferring books from her backpack, organizing them by class period, when a shadow fell across the metal door. "That's not your locker." The voice was deep, carrying the kind of casual authority that came from never being challenged. Alex turned slowly, keeping her body language neutral, to face a boy who looked like he'd been carved from granite specifically to intimidate. He was built like a linebacker, 6 feet 2 inches of trained muscle, barely contained by his Letterman jacket. His dark hair was styled in an expensive cut that suggested both money and vanity, the kind that required products with names like molding clay and texture paste. Behind him stood two equally imposing figures, their positions strategic, blocking easy escape routes. The leader wore his Letterman jacket like armor, with Carson stitched across the back in bold gold letters. His jaw was square, his eyes a cold blue that reminded Alex of winter mornings in Portland, and his entire bearing suggested someone who'd never heard the word no in any context that mattered. "Number 2847, Alex said calmly, pointing to the small metal plate affixed to the locker door. "Assigned by the office. The paperwork's in my bag if you need to see it." Carson's eyes narrowed, creating small lines that would probably become permanent in a decade or two. "That's been my extra locker since freshman year. The administration must have screwed up." One of his friends, a boy with a military-style buzz cut and the thick neck of a wrestler, snickered. "Yeah, they made two mistakes, giving you Brad's locker and letting you into Riverdale at all." The third boy, lean where the others were bulky, with calculating eyes and a face that seemed locked in a permanent sneer, added, "Maybe she can't read numbers. They probably have different ones where she's from." Alex recognized the moment for what it was. A test, a claiming of territory, a primitive display of dominance that wouldn't have been out of place in a nature documentary about pack animals. Her father's words echoed in her memory. Spoken so many times, they'd become mantra. "Choose your battles carefully, Lexi. Most aren't worth fighting. The wise warrior wins without drawing their sword." "I'll request a different one," Alex said, closing the locker with deliberate calm and stepping away from it. "No problem." Carson's hand shot out faster than expected, shoving Alex hard against the metal lockers. The impact rang through the hallway, sharp and metallic, drawing the attention of the few remaining students. "That's right. And while you're at it, watch yourself in these halls. Accidents happen to people who don't pay attention, people who don't show proper respect." A familiar heat bloomed in Alex's chest, spreading through her limbs like liquid fire. Her muscles tensed involuntarily, muscle memory from thousands of hours of training screaming at her to respond. Block, redirect, strike. 3 moves and Carson would be on the ground, gasping. Her hands wanted to curl into fists. Her stance wanted to shift into something more stable, more dangerous. But years of harder training kicked in, not the physical kind, but the mental discipline her father had drilled into her with even more dedication than the martial arts. Breathe in through the nose, hold for 4 counts, out through the mouth. Center yourself. Feel the ground beneath your feet. This isn't the place. This isn't the time. These aren't the opponents who matter. "Got it," Alex replied, voice deliberately steady, emptied of both challenge and submission. Carson seemed disappointed by the lack of reaction. His face twisted into something ugly, and he knocked the books from Alex's hands with a casual swipe before sauntering away with his friends. Their laughter echoed down the corridor, bouncing off the walls like verbal shrapnel. "Freshman mistake, Chen," Carson called over his shoulder. "Everything here has an owner. You better learn your place quick." Alex knelt to gather the scattered papers, noting how some had been stepped on, leaving dirty shoe prints across her carefully organized class notes. A pair of worn Converse sneakers appeared in her field of vision, their owner crouching to help collect the scattered materials. "Sorry about that," said a lanky boy with thick-rimmed glasses and sandy hair that looked like he cut it himself with kitchen scissors. He had the pale complexion of someone who spent more time with computers than sunlight. "Carson Williams and his crew are grade A jerks. I'm Noah, by the way, Noah Brennan." "Alex," she replied, accepting the papers he'd gathered. "Thanks for the help." "Yeah, I heard we were getting a new student. Word travels fast in a school this small, like seriously fast. You sneeze in first period, and by lunch, everyone knows what kind of tissue you used." Noah stood, adjusting his backpack straps nervously. "Carson's the wrestling team captain. His dad's on the school board, owns half the commercial real estate in town, so he thinks he owns the place. Well, the school at least. It's fine, Alex said, straightening her rescued papers. Not my first welcome committee. Noah raised an eyebrow, a gesture that made him look older than his probable 17 years. You move around a lot. You could say that. Alex glanced at the clock mounted high on the wall. I should get to class. What do you have first? English, room 204. Abernathy? He's actually one of the good ones. Fair, but tough. Don't let him catch you without the reading done, though. He has this way of knowing exactly who didn't do the homework and calling on them first. Noah started walking, and Alex fell into step beside him. I've got calculus with Harrison, so I'm going the same direction. Word of advice? Stick to the edges of the hallways between classes. Carson and his boys like to body check people in the middle of the corridor. They call it accidentally bumping into someone, but everyone knows better. The final bell rang just as they reached the intersection where they'd part ways. Noah gave a small wave and disappeared into a classroom, while Alex slipped into room 204 just as the teacher was reaching for the door handle. The man who must be Mr. Abernathy was not what she'd expected from Megan's enthusiastic description. He was in his 50s, with silver threading through dark hair, kept slightly longer than conventional, and a neatly trimmed beard that gave him a scholarly air. His eyes were sharp, intelligent, the kind that missed nothing and revealed less. He wore a tweed jacket with actual elbow patches, either ironically or sincerely. Alex couldn't tell. "Ah, our new student," he said, his voice carrying a subtle accent that suggested education at good schools and time spent in interesting places. "Cutting it rather close, aren't we? I'm Mr. Abernathy. Why don't you introduce yourself to the class?" Alex stepped forward reluctantly, feeling the weight of 27 curious stares, like physical pressure. The classroom was arranged in a modified horseshoe, leaving her exposed in the center like a specimen under examination. She noted Carson sitting in the back row, his friends flanking him like gargoyles. "I'm Alex Chen," she said, keeping her voice neutral but clear. "Moved here from Sacramento. Not much else to tell." Sacramento, Mr. Abernathy mused, as if the city name contained hidden significance. Quite a change coming to Riverdale. What brings your family to our humble town? Before Alex could respond, a voice from the back called out, "Tyler," the lean one with the permanent sneer. "What? Are you in witness protection or something? Did Daddy embezzle from his company?" Scattered laughter rippled through the room, uncomfortable rather than genuine. Mr. Abernathy's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted almost imperceptibly. "Mr. Reed, perhaps you'd like to share with the class your thoughts on the theme of hospitality in the Odyssey, since you're so eager to participate this morning." Tyler's smirk faltered. I haven't finished the reading yet." "How surprising," Mr. Abernathy replied dryly. "Then perhaps you should focus on that rather than constructing elaborate backstories for your classmates. Miss Chen, please take the empty seat in the third row. We're discussing Macbeth's relationship with prophecy and self-determination." The only empty seat was, coincidentally or deliberately, directly in front of Carson. Alex sat down, hyper-aware of his presence behind her, like a storm system building pressure. Throughout Mr. Abernathy's lecture on fate versus free will in Shakespeare's tragedy, Carson kept up a steady campaign of minor harassment, kicking the back of her chair with irregular rhythm, making whispered comments to his friends that included her name, accidentally dropping his textbook with a bang that made half the class jump. Mr. Abernathy continued his lecture as if unaware, but Alex caught him glancing their direction with an expression of careful evaluation. He was watching, cataloguing, perhaps waiting to see how she'd respond. The class period felt like an eternity, but finally the bell rang. As students gathered their belongings, Mr. Abernathy called out, "Miss Chen, a word please." Alex approached his desk while the classroom emptied, Carson making sure to bump her shoulder as he passed. Mr. Abernathy waited until they were alone before speaking. "I make it a point to research new students," he said, organizing papers on his desk with precise movements. "Your transcripts are interesting. Excellent grades, advanced placement courses, but frequent transfers. That must be challenging." "We manage," Alex replied carefully. "I imagine you do." He looked up, his gaze direct but not unkind. "If you need any assistance adjusting to Riverdale's particular social dynamics, my door is always open. Some battles are best fought with allies, don't you think?" There was something in his tone, a weight to his words that suggested deeper meaning. Alex nodded slowly. "Thank you. I'll keep that in mind." "See that you do. Oh, and Miss Chen, we're starting King Lear next week. I think you'll find the theme of power and its corruption particularly relevant." The rest of the morning passed in a blur of new faces, classroom orientations, and syllabus reviews. In chemistry, Ms. Rodriguez assigned lab partners alphabetically, which paired Alex with a quiet girl named Jennifer, who seemed terrified of both chemicals and social interaction. In history, Mr. Patterson droned through a PowerPoint about the Civil War that looked like it hadn't been updated since PowerPoint was invented. By the time lunch arrived, Alex had mapped most of the school's layout and catalogued its social hierarchy with the efficiency of an anthropologist studying a newly discovered tribe. The cafeteria was the perfect microcosm of Riverdale High's ecosystem, with territories as clearly defined as any map. Carson and his crew, which she'd learned included not just Damon and Tyler, but a rotating cast of wrestlers, football players, and their admirers, occupied the central tables like a medieval court. The positioning was strategic, allowing them to survey their domain while forcing everyone else to navigate around them. Megan sat with the theatre kids near the windows, their table always animated with dramatic gestures and sudden bursts of laughter or song. The band kids clustered near the food line, instruments cases stacked like a fortress wall around their territory. The AP students held the corner near the vending machines, textbooks and laptops covering every available surface. Noah was with a small group in the far corner, playing what looked like magic, the gathering with the focused intensity of military strategists. Various other groups filled the remaining spaces, the art students with paint still under their fingernails, the shop kids with motor oil stains on their jeans, the athletes sorted by sport like species seeking their own kind. Alex chose an empty table near the emergency exit, positioning herself with clear sight lines to all entrances. She'd barely unwrapped her sandwich, peanut butter and honey, made that morning in their still unfamiliar kitchen, when Noah appeared with his lunch tray. "Mind if I join?" he asked, already sitting down. "My magic game ended early. Tom got mana screwed and rage quit." Alex nodded to the empty chair. "Free country. So what really brings you to our scenic middle-of-nowhere town?" Noah asked between bites of something the cafeteria optimistically claimed was lasagna. "And don't say your dad's job. Nobody moves to Riverdale for work unless they're hiding from something or someone." Alex poked at her own tray, where a similar substance congealed under fluorescent lights. "Dad's a security consultant. He goes where the contracts are." "Security consultant," Noah repeated, his tone suggesting he wasn't buying it. "That's conveniently vague. What kind of security? Corporate, residential, witness protection? Corporate, mostly. Risk assessment, system vulnerabilities, that kind of thing." "And your mom?" Noah asked, then immediately seemed to regret it as Alex's expression shifted. "Sorry, that's none of my business." "Not in the picture," Alex said quietly, the words carrying years of practiced deflection. Noah seemed to sense the boundary, solid as any wall, and change direction. "Well, Riverdale's not so bad once you learn who to avoid, like Carson and his disciples." "Disciples?" "That's what everyone calls them. Like they're following some toxic prophet of testosterone and privilege. Noah nodded toward the center tables where Carson held court. Damon Foster's the one with the buzz cut. His dad's the police chief, which means Damon's been getting away with stuff since elementary school. Tyler Reed's the skinny one with the face that looks like it's permanently smelling something bad. His dad's a lawyer, the kind who helps rich people stay rich and out of jail. And together they're what? The school's unofficial disciplinary committee. Noah laughed, but there was no humor in it. More like a reign of terror. They've been making kids' lives miserable since we were all in grade school. Carson was the kid who pushed others off the monkey bars. Damon was the one who held kids down while Carson hit them. Tyler was the one who made sure no one told the teachers. Why doesn't anyone stop them? You're joking, right? Noah gestured around the cafeteria. Carson's dad donates the new football uniforms every year, pays for the wrestling team's equipment, probably pays half the school board's golf club memberships. Damon's dad handles all the teenagers being teenagers complaints, makes sure nothing serious ever gets filed. And Tyler's dad, he's represented the school district in 3 lawsuits. Nobody wants to cross them. Alex absorbed this information, filing it away with the rest of her observations. There must have been someone who tried. Noah's expression darkened. There was. Daniel King. He was in our grade, actually stood up to Carson last year. Called him out in front of everyone for cheating on a test. What happened? Officially? Daniel fell down the stairs behind the gym, broke 3 ribs, got a severe concussion, fractured his orbital bone. Noah's voice dropped. Unofficially? Everyone knows Carson and his boys jumped him, but Daniel couldn't remember anything about the incident when he woke up, and there were no witnesses. Well, no witnesses willing to talk. Where's Daniel now? Transferred to Riverside Academy 2 towns over. His parents said it was for the better academic program, but everyone knows they were terrified for their kids' safety. Noah pushed his barely touched lasagna away. That's when everyone really understood that Carson wasn't just a bully anymore. He was dangerous. The rest of lunch passed with Noah explaining the intricate social dynamics of Riverdale High, painting a picture of a school held hostage by 3 boys whose families' influence made them untouchable. Alex listened, asked occasional questions, and mentally prepared herself for what she knew was coming. After school, Alex found them exactly where she expected. Carson and his friends leaning against her assigned locker like they owned it, which she supposed they believed they did. "Excuse me," Alex said quietly, approaching with measured steps. "Oh, look, it speaks," Carson said, not moving. "You know, I was thinking about our little chat this morning. I don't think I made myself clear enough." He pushed off the locker and stepped closer, using his height advantage to loom over her. This close, she could smell his cologne, something expensive and over-applied, mixed with the lingering scent of cafeteria food. "This isn't just about the locker," he continued. "It's about respect, understanding the natural order of things. You're new here, so maybe you don't get it yet, but there's a hierarchy, and you're at the bottom." "I'm not looking for trouble," Alex said, keeping her voice steady. "Too late for that." Carson's smile didn't reach his eyes, making him look like a shark that had just detected blood in the water. "See, word is you were kicked out of your last school. That true?" Alex's body tensed involuntarily, her mind racing. How could they know that? The records were sealed, the incident officially expunged after the legal proceedings. Her father had made sure of it, spent thousands on lawyers to protect her future. "I'll take that as a yes," Carson continued, mistaking her silence for confirmation. "So what was it? Drugs, fighting, theft, or maybe something worse?" "I need to catch my bus," Alex said, attempting to step around them. Tyler moved to block the exit, his thin frame deceptively quick. "Bus can wait. We're having a conversation here." Alex calculated odds, distances, potential witnesses. 20 students still lingered in the hallway, most pretending not to watch while obviously watching. A teacher visible through a classroom door 30 feet away, grading papers with deliberate focus. Too public for what Carson clearly wanted to happen, but also too public for her to respond without consequences. "Tomorrow," Alex said, meeting Carson's gaze directly. "After school, we can talk then." Carson seemed surprised by the suggestion, his script disrupted. He exchanged glances with his friends, then smiled, a genuine expression this time, tinged with anticipation. "Sure, behind the gym, we'll have a proper Riverdale welcoming committee for you." He stepped aside with exaggerated courtesy. "Don't be late." They parted to let Alex pass, their laughter following her all the way to the bus. She could feel other students watching, could practically hear the gossip spreading like wildfire through text messages and whispered conversations. The new girl had just signed up for her own execution. The bus ride home took 17 minutes through residential streets, lined with houses that looked like they'd been copied and pasted from a suburban planning template. Alex stared out the window, not really seeing the passing scenery, her mind already running through scenarios and probabilities. The apartment still smelled of fresh paint and cardboard boxes when she entered, the scent of yet another new beginning that felt increasingly like an ending. They'd moved in 3 days ago, and half their belongings were still packed, as if even the boxes knew this might be temporary. She dropped her backpack by the door and headed straight for the spare bedroom they'd converted into a training space. The heavy bag hung from a reinforced beam, installed the first night they'd arrived, before they'd even unpacked the kitchen supplies. Priorities. Alex wrapped her hands with the familiar precision of someone who'd done it thousands of times, the ritual itself calming. The white fabric wound around her knuckles and wrists, each loop deliberate and exact. Then she attacked the bag with a combination that would have made her instructors proud or concerned. Jab, cross, hook, uppercut. The bag swayed and spun with each impact. Knee strike, elbow, spinning back fist. Her body moved through the sequences with fluid grace, muscle memory taking over while her mind processed the day's events. "Rough first day." Her father's voice came from the doorway, calm and knowing. Michael Chen still moved with the quiet efficiency of the fighter he'd once been, despite the suit and tie that marked his current profession. At 45, he maintained the lean, dangerous physique that had earned him the nickname The Ghost in his competitive days. A fighter who seemed to materialize and vanish at will, never where opponents expected him to be. Alex threw a 3-punch combination that sent the bag swinging violently. The usual. Michael watched his daughter work, his dark eyes cataloging her form, her intensity, the barely controlled anger in her strikes. "Do you want to talk about it?" "Not really." Another combination, this time ending with a roundhouse kick that would have folded a person in half. "Alex." His voice took on that particular tone, not the concerned father, but Sifu Chen, the teacher who'd guided not just his daughter, but dozens of students through years of training. She caught the bag, stilling its motion, and turned to face him. They stood there for a moment, two warriors recognizing each other across the generational divide. "Some guys think they run the school," she finally said. "Typical stuff, rich kids with too much privilege and not enough supervision. And they've targeted you. It's what they do to all new students, apparently. Establish dominance, make sure everyone knows their place in the food chain." "But," Michael prompted, hearing what she wasn't saying, "but they've somehow heard about Sacramento, about what happened. I don't know how. Those records were sealed." Michael's face tightened, the only sign of his anger. "That's impossible. We made sure of it. The lawyers guaranteed." "Well, someone unguaranteed it." Alex began unwrapping her hands, the white fabric now damp with sweat. "They want to meet tomorrow, behind the gym after school. And you'll walk away." It wasn't a question. "Dad, "You'll walk away," he repeated more firmly. "We agreed. No more incidents. You're 2 months from graduation, from putting all this behind you. What if walking away isn't an option? What if they don't let me?" Michael sighed, suddenly looking every one of his 45 years. "There's always another option, Lexi. Sometimes it's running. Sometimes it's finding allies. Sometimes it's waiting for a better moment." "You wouldn't have walked away," she said quietly. "Not when you were my age. Not when you were competing. I wasn't 17 with my whole future ahead of me. I was 23 with nothing to lose but my pride." He moved into the room, his steps silent on the padded floor. "And look where that pride got me. Your mother—" He stopped, the words catching in his throat even after 5 years. "Mom would have understood," Alex said softly. "Your mother would have been terrified," Michael corrected. "She knew what I was when she married me, knew the violence I was capable of, but she was always afraid it would touch you, that you'd inherit more than just my eyes and my stubborn streak." "I inherited her compassion too," Alex pointed out. "Her need to protect people who can't protect themselves. Is that what this is about, protecting others?" Alex considered the question. Not yet. Right now it's just about survival. But Dad, I can't keep running. We can't keep running. Eventually we need to stand our ground." Michael was quiet for a long moment, then moved to the equipment rack and selected a pair of focus mitts. "Show me your combinations. If you're going to face them tomorrow, and I'm not saying you should, you need to be sharp." They trained for the next hour, father and daughter moving in the deadly dance they'd perfected over years. Michael called out combinations, and Alex executed them with increasing precision. Palm strikes, joint locks, throws and counters. Not the flashy moves of movie fights, but the brutal efficiency of real combat. "Remember," Michael said as Alex executed a perfect armbar that would have dislocated a shoulder, "the best victory is the one you never have to fight for," Alex finished. "I know, Dad. But what about the second best victory? The one where you walk away unharmed, regardless of what happens to your opponents?" He pulled off the mitts. "But if you must fight, if there's truly no other option, then you fight to end it quickly. No playing around, no teaching lessons, disable and disengage." After dinner, take-out Chinese from the one restaurant in town that delivered, Alex searched online for information about her tormentors. The Riverdale Herald's digital archives painted a clear picture through years of carefully worded articles. Carson Williams, wrestling state champion 3 years running, headed to college on a full athletic scholarship. Multiple mentions in the police blotter for minor incidents that never seemed to result in charges. His father, Richard Williams, owned 3 car dealerships and sat on both the school board and city council. Damon Foster, suspended twice for undisclosed infractions, both times returning to school without apparent consequence. His father, Chief Robert Foster, was quoted frequently in articles about keeping Riverdale's youth on the right path through understanding and second chances. Tyler Reed, the most interesting of the 3. Juvenile record that had been expunged, but references to troubled youth finding redemption in puff pieces about his father's law firm. Marcus Reed specialized in criminal defense and had connections throughout the state's legal system. And then there was Daniel King. The articles about his accident were carefully neutral, but Alex could read between the lines. A stellar student, honor roll, debate team captain who suddenly fell down stairs that dozens of students used daily without incident. The investigation was closed after just 3 days. Daniel's family moved out of Riverdale within a month. Alex closed the laptop, decision crystallizing. She understood now what she was really facing, not just 3 bullies, but a system that protected them. Running wouldn't solve anything. They'd just find another Daniel King to terrorize. But fighting them could bring the entire weight of that system down on her and her father. She needed a third option. The next morning arrived grey and overcast, the kind of California day that tourists never believed existed. Alex arrived at school early, before the buses, and made her way to the library. Mrs. Patterson, the librarian, barely looked up from her romance novel as Alex settled into a corner with a clear view of the entrance. She wasn't researching for classes. Instead, she pulled up every social media profile, every tagged photo, every digital footprint of Carson Williams, Damon Foster, and Tyler Reed. Everyone had secrets in the digital age, and teenage boys were particularly bad at hiding theirs. Carson's Instagram was full of parties where red solo cups featured prominently despite being underage. Training videos showed him using technically illegal moves during wrestling practice. Comments on his posts hinted at a gambling ring around school sports. Damon's digital footprint was smaller but more damaging. Screenshots from a private Snapchat group showed him sharing test answers, selling them actually, if the Venmo transactions matched up. His Twitter account, under a pseudonym he thought was clever, contained rants that would make his police chief father cringe. Tyler was the goldmine. His anonymous Reddit account detailed his various schemes, from selling fake IDs to running an essay writing service for wealthy students. He'd even bragged about framing another student for vandalism the previous year. Alex documented everything, creating encrypted backups on 3 different cloud services. Information was ammunition, and she was building an arsenal. The library began filling with students, and Alex noticed a familiar figure at the reference desk. Mr. Abernathy was discussing something with Mrs. Patterson, but his eyes found Alex in her corner. He gave an almost imperceptible nod before continuing his conversation. First period English was tense. Carson and his friends were wound tight with anticipation, their excitement barely contained. They whispered throughout Mr. Abernathy's lecture on Macbeth's ultimate downfall, making sure Alex could hear their plans for the afternoon. "Going to be educational," Tyler muttered. "Very educational," Damon agreed. Mr. Abernathy, continuing his discussion of hubris and nemesis, said loudly, "Of course, Macbeth's greatest failure was his inability to foresee how his own actions would create his downfall. He believed himself invincible, protected by prophecy and position, never imagining that his victims might have prepared for his violence." The class took notes dutifully, but Alex caught the pointed look he gave toward the back row. At lunch, Megan found Alex at her usual isolated table. "Everyone's talking about what's happening after school," she said without preamble, sitting down uninvited. "You can't go. News travels fast." "Alex, I'm serious. Last year, Daniel King—" "I know about Daniel." Megan's eyes widened. "Then you know what they're capable of. Daniel was a black belt in karate, and they still destroyed him. 3 against 1. No mercy." "I know." "Then why are you going?" Megan's voice rose, drawing stares from nearby tables. "Just don't show up. Take the absent suspension. Let them call you a coward. Who cares? It's better than the hospital." "Sometimes running makes things worse," Alex said quietly. "Sometimes it just delays the inevitable." Noah appeared, looking agitated. "I've been doing research," he announced, pulling out his phone. "Did you know assault charges can be filed as felonies if there's great bodily injury, and that colleges can revoke scholarships for criminal convictions?" "What's your point?" Alex asked, though she appreciated his concern. "My point is that if something happens today, if they hurt you, we need documentation, evidence." He held up his phone. "I'll be recording everything. So will others. I've already talked to Jennifer from your chemistry class and 3 people from the computer club." "You organized a surveillance network?" Noah pushed his glasses up nervously. "Well, when you put it like that, it sounds way cooler than it is. We're just going to make sure there's evidence this time. What happened to Daniel can't happen again." After school, the area behind the gym looked like a Roman amphitheater. Word had spread throughout the day, and at least 50 students had gathered, forming a loose circle. Some stood on the bleachers for a better view. Others clustered in groups, phones already out and recording. Carson, Damon, and Tyler stood in the center of the informal ring, their Letterman jackets like armor. Carson had removed his and handed it to a girl with blonde hair and too much makeup who gazed at him with worship. They looked pleased with the turnout, feeding off the energy of the crowd. Alex approached slowly, setting down her backpack with deliberate care at the edge of the circle. She'd changed into athletic wear, loose pants that wouldn't restrict movement, a fitted shirt that wouldn't provide easy handholds, hair tied back tightly, no jewelry, nothing that could be grabbed or caught. "Didn't think you'd show?" Carson called out, playing to his audience. "Thought you might have run back to Sacramento already." "You wanted to talk," Alex said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "So talk." Carson laughed, the sound sharp and mean. "Actually, we thought we'd educate you on how things work around here. Consider it orientation." "Lesson 1, Damon added, cracking his knuckles in a theatrical display that would have been funny if not for the genuine menace behind it. "Respect the hierarchy." Tyler was already moving to flank her, trying to get into her blind spot. "Lesson 2, outsiders need to earn their place." Alex took a measured breath, her voice carrying clearly across the assembled crowd. "I've tried being reasonable. I've tried walking away. I offered to change lockers, to stay out of your way. This confrontation, this is your choice, not mine." She turned slowly, making eye contact with as many phones as possible. "Everyone here is a witness. I'm asking you, one more time, to walk away. We can all just leave, go home, pretend this never happened. No one has to get hurt." The crowd murmured at this unexpected declaration. This wasn't following the usual script. Carson's face darkened, his jaw clenching. "Are you threatening us?" "No," Alex replied calmly. "I'm offering you an option, a chance to make a better choice than the one you made with Daniel King." The mention of Daniel's name sent a ripple through the crowd. Carson's expression shifted from anger to something more dangerous, cold calculation. "Daniel was weak," he said. "He thought he was tough, but he learned different, just like you're about to." "Daniel wasn't weak," Alex corrected. "He was outnumbered, ambushed, and didn't see the attack coming. Today's different. Today everyone's watching. Today there are cameras recording every second. Today, if someone gets hurt, there will be consequences." Tyler laughed, high and nervous. "You think some phone videos are going to protect you?" "No," Alex said. "I can protect myself. The videos are to protect you." The crowd went silent. Tyler moved first, his patience exhausted. He lunged forward with a wild haymaker that telegraphed his intentions from 10 feet away. Alex sidestepped with minimal effort, her body flowing like water around his attack. Tyler stumbled, his momentum carrying him past her, and he turned with an angry growl. "Lucky dodge," he spat, advancing more cautiously this time. Alex remained perfectly still, hands relaxed at her sides, weight balanced on the balls of her feet. When Tyler attacked again with a flurry of punches, she didn't retreat. Instead, she moved forward inside his range, deflecting each strike with small, efficient movements of her hands and forearms. She never struck back, just redirected his force away from her center line. The crowd grew quieter with each failed attack, beginning to realize something was different about this confrontation. Tyler, frustrated and embarrassed, launched a powerful kick aimed at Alex's midsection. Time seemed to slow as Alex caught his leg at the ankle, her grip firm but not crushing. With a subtle twist of her hips and a pull that used Tyler's own momentum against him, she sent him sprawling onto the asphalt. He landed hard on his back, the impact driving the air from his lungs. "Stay down," Alex advised quietly, but loud enough for the nearest spectators to hear. "You're done." Tyler scrambled to his feet, face flushed with humiliation and rage. Damon joined him now, and they circled Alex from opposite sides, trying to coordinate their attack. They rushed in simultaneously, Damon high, Tyler low, a tactic that had worked on countless victims before. Alex dropped her center of gravity, going lower than Tyler, causing him to overextend. Her shoulder caught him in the solar plexus, folding him over, while her hand guided his face firmly but carefully to the ground. In the same motion, she pivoted on her back foot, using Damon's charging weight against him. Her hip threw him over her shoulder in a textbook judo throw that sent him crashing into Tyler. Still, Alex hadn't thrown a single strike. Every movement was defensive, redirecting, controlling, but not attacking. "Enough!" Carson barked, stepping forward. "So you know a few tricks. Probably took some mall karate classes. Let's see how you handle a real fighter." He shrugged off his Letterman jacket with practiced flair, revealing arms corded with functional muscle. Unlike his friend's wild swings, Carson approached with the measured confidence of someone who actually knew how to fight. His stance was that of a trained wrestler, low, balanced, ready to shoot for a takedown. "Last chance," Alex warned, though she knew it was futile. Carson smirked and launched a textbook double-leg takedown, the kind that had won him state championships. His form was perfect, his speed impressive. But Alex wasn't there when he arrived. She'd pivoted at the last possible second, using his forward momentum against him. Her hands found his shoulders and guided him past her, adding just enough force to send him stumbling. He recovered quickly, spinning to face her with newfound wariness. "You're quick," he admitted, "but speed won't save you forever." He attacked again, this time with a combination of strikes and grappling attempts, trying to use his superior strength to overwhelm her. Alex met each attack with precise counters, her body moving with an economy of motion that spoke of years of training. She wasn't just dodging, she was reading his intentions, seeing the attacks before he fully committed to them. When Carson overextended on a particularly aggressive rush, trying to grab her in a bear hug that would let him use his wrestling skills, Alex finally went on the offensive. Her palm struck his sternum with surgical precision. Not hard enough to cause lasting damage, but with enough focused force to disrupt his breathing and balance. As he staggered backward, gasping, she swept his legs with a low kick that took his foundation completely. Carson hit the ground hard, flat on his back, his head bouncing slightly off the asphalt. Alex stood over him, her stance ready but not aggressive, giving him room to stand if he chose to. The crowd was dead silent now, the only sound Carson's labored breathing as he struggled to fill his lungs. "How?" he wheezed, managing to prop himself up on his elbows. Alex looked around at the assembled students, ensuring she had their attention, then spoke clearly. 8 years of Wing Chun under Sifu Lee in San Francisco, starting when I was 9. 3 years of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Portland, with 2 junior championships. 2 years of Muay Thai in Sacramento, plus wrestling and judo. My father was a professional MMA fighter before I was born, Michael the Ghost Chen. Maybe some of you have heard of him. He started training me the day I could walk. She let that sink in before continuing. At my last school in Sacramento, 3 boys like you decided to corner me in the parking lot. One of them pulled a knife. She paused, her voice dropping but still carrying. He spent 2 weeks in the hospital with a shattered elbow and dislocated shoulder. I spent 3 months fighting expulsion and criminal charges while their parents tried to sue my family into bankruptcy. The only reason I'm not in juvenile detention is because a security camera caught him pulling the weapon first. Alex stepped back, giving Carson more room. I don't want to fight. I never do, but I will protect myself. And starting today, I'll protect anyone else who needs it. The bullying stops, the threats stop, the intimidation stops. All of it stops now. You think this changes anything? Carson managed, getting unsteadily to his feet. My father. Your father will be very interested in the video evidence of his son orchestrating an assault, a new voice interrupted. Mr. Abernathy stepped into the circle, his phone held up, still recording. I've been documenting this entire encounter, Mr. Williams. I'm sure the school board, including your father, will find it quite educational. Carson's face went pale as the implications hit him. You can't... We were just what? Mr. Abernathy asked mildly. Testing the new student? Having a bit of fun? Like you did with Daniel King? The name hung in the air like an accusation. That was an accident, Damon protested, finally finding his voice from where he still sat on the ground. Yes, so the official report stated, Mr. Abernathy agreed. Though I wonder how that report might be reconsidered in light of new evidence of a pattern of violent behavior. A siren wailed in the distance, growing closer. Someone had called the police. Everyone disperse, Mr. Abernathy commanded with the authority of someone used to being obeyed. Except you four. He pointed to Carson, Damon, Tyler, and Alex. We'll be having a conversation with the administration and, I suspect, some parents. As the crowd scattered, phones tucked away but videos already uploading to social media, Noah approached Alex with something between awe and concern on his face. That was... He seemed at a loss for words. Necessary, Alex finished. Sometimes you have to stand your ground. Megan appeared at her other side, her expression unreadable. You could have told us you were basically a ninja. I'm not a ninja, Alex corrected tiredly. I'm just someone who learned to fight because she had to. There's nothing cool or special about it. It's just survival. The police arrived, two officers who looked distinctly uncomfortable when they realized one of the boys sitting on the ground was their chief's son. Principal Vaughn appeared moments later, her face cycling through expressions of shock, anger, and calculation as she surveyed the scene. My office, she said tersely. All of you. Officers, if you could escort them, please. The walk to the administration building felt like a funeral procession. Carson, Damon, and Tyler trudged ahead, their earlier bravado completely deflated. Alex followed with Mr. Abernathy at her side, his presence a silent support. In the principal's office, which suddenly seemed too small for the gathering crowd, parents began arriving in rapid succession. Carson's father stormed in first, his expensive suit and red face making him look like an angry corporate shark. What's the meaning of this? He demanded. Why is my son being detained like a common criminal? Because he assaulted a student, Mr. Williams, Principal Vaughn replied, her voice steady despite the political weight in the room. We have multiple witnesses and video evidence. Assault? It was just kids being kids. Mr. Abernathy, the principal interrupted, please show Mr. Williams your recording. As the video played on Mr. Abernathy's phone, showing Carson and his friends clearly as the aggressors and Alex defending herself with remarkable restraint, the room grew increasingly quiet. Chief Foster arrived halfway through, his uniform imposing, his face growing darker as he watched his son's behavior. Tyler's father, Marcus Reed, entered last, his lawyer's mind already calculating damage control strategies. When the video ended, silence stretched uncomfortable and tense. That's not the whole story, Carson began weakly. It's enough of the story, Principal Vaughn said firmly. Mr. Williams, Chief Foster, Mr. Reed, your sons orchestrated and executed an assault on another student. The fact that Miss Chen was able to defend herself doesn't diminish their culpability. Now wait just a minute, Mr. Williams began, his school board authority creeping into his voice. This girl clearly has training that makes her dangerous. The door opened again and Michael Chen entered. He wore his work clothes, tactical pants and a polo shirt with his security firm's logo, but carried himself with the quiet confidence that had made him a legend in fighting circles. "I apologize for being late," he said calmly, his eyes taking in the room with a professional's assessment. "I came as soon as the school called." Chief Foster did a double take. "Michael Chen? The ghost?" Michael inclined his head slightly. "A long time ago. Now I'm just a concerned father whose daughter was attacked by 3 boys on school property." The dynamics in the room shifted palpably. Where before there had been 3 powerful men ready to protect their sons, now there was a 4th presence, one who couldn't be intimidated by money, political connections, or legal threats. "Your daughter could have killed our sons," Tyler's father said, though his tone was more cautious now. "My daughter showed more restraint than most adults would have," Michael replied evenly. "She gave them multiple opportunities to walk away. She defended herself without causing serious injury, despite being outnumbered 3-1. If anything, you should be thanking her for her control." "Thanking her?" Carson's father sputtered. "Would you prefer she had responded with the full extent of her capabilities?" Michael asked quietly. "Your son is walking and talking. After attacking someone with 8 years of combat training, that's a gift." Mr. Abernathy cleared his throat. "If I may, Principal Vaughn, I believe there's a larger issue here that needs addressing. This isn't the first incident involving these 3 students. There's a pattern of bullying and intimidation that the school has failed to address." "That's a serious accusation," Chief Foster said, his voice carrying a warning. "It's not an accusation, it's a documented fact," Mr. Abernathy replied, producing a folder from his bag. "I've been keeping records, complaints that were filed and mysteriously disappeared, students who transferred rather than continue facing harassment. And of course, there's Daniel King." The mention of Daniel changed the atmosphere entirely. The 3 fathers exchanged glances, a silent communication of shared guilt or knowledge. "Daniel King's situation was investigated and resolved," Chief Foster said carefully. "Resolved, perhaps? Investigated?" Mr. Abernathy's tone was skeptical. "A 3-day investigation for a serious assault. No witness interviews despite dozens of students in the area. No examination of the boys' previous behavioral issues." "You're walking a dangerous line, teacher," Marcus Reed said, his lawyer instincts activated. "So are your sons," Mr. Abernathy replied unflinchingly. "And today, they crossed it." Principal Vaughn raised her hand for silence. "Enough. Here's what's going to happen. Carson, Damon, and Tyler, you're suspended for 2 weeks, pending a full disciplinary hearing. You'll also attend mandatory anger management counseling." 2 weeks? Mr. Williams exploded. "That could affect Carson's wrestling scholarship." "Actions have consequences," Principal Vaughn said firmly. "Your son is lucky Miss Chen isn't pressing criminal charges." "Actually," Michael said thoughtfully, "we're still considering our options. I'll need to review the video evidence and consult with our attorney." The threat hung in the air, unspoken but clear. The 3 powerful fathers who had protected their sons for years suddenly faced someone they couldn't intimidate or buy off. "As for you, Miss Chen," Principal Vaughn continued, "while self-defense is permitted under school policy, we cannot condone students taking discipline into their own hands. 3 days of after-school detention." Michael considered this, then nodded. "That seems reasonable." The meeting concluded with subdued parents escorting their chastened sons away. As they filed out, Chief Foster paused near Michael. "Your daughter," he said quietly, "she could have hurt them badly." "Yes," Michael agreed simply, "but she didn't. Number I taught her better than that. The greatest victory is the one you never have to fight for," Chief Foster finished, surprising him. "I used to follow your career. You lived that philosophy in the ring. And now my daughter lives it in life," Michael said, "though today she had to settle for the second-best victory." Chief Foster nodded slowly, understanding passing between them. Two fathers, two fighters, two men who understood violence and its costs. After the office cleared, Alex and her father walked toward their car in the fading afternoon light. The parking lot was mostly empty now, but Alex could see faces in windows, students and teachers watching their departure. "You handled yourself well," Michael said finally. "I used everything you taught me. Not just the fighting, the restraint, the warnings, the positioning to ensure witnesses." He smiled slightly. "You even made sure to be recorded from multiple angles. Very strategic." "I learned from the best," Alex said, "both in combat and in tactics." They reached their car, but Michael didn't immediately unlock it. "You know this isn't over. Those boys, their families, they won't forget this humiliation easily." "I know, but I'm tired of running, Dad. And maybe this time we don't have to." Michael was quiet for a moment, then said, "Mr. Abernathy seems like a good ally to have. He knew who you were. Said he covered your fights for a sports magazine." "John Abernathy," Michael said, recognition dawning. "I remember him now. Good writer, understood the sport beyond just the violence. I didn't know he'd become a teacher. He's been documenting everything. The bullying, the complaints, the cover-ups. I think he's been waiting for someone to stand up to them. And that someone turned out to be you." Michael unlocked the car. "Your mother would be proud. Terrified but proud." As they drove home through Riverdale's quiet streets, Alex thought about the confrontation, about the moment when she'd stood over Carson and made her declaration. She'd meant every word. The bullying would stop, not just for her, but for everyone. "Dad?" she said as they pulled into their apartment complex. "Yeah. I want to start a self-defense class for students who need it. Mr. Abernathy mentioned he might sponsor it." Michael was quiet for a moment, then smiled. "Teaching others to protect themselves, that's a worthy use of your skills." "It's not about creating fighters," Alex explained. "It's about giving people confidence, options, the ability to walk away from fights because they know they could handle them if necessary." "The best victory," Michael began, "is the one that gives others the power to claim their own victories," Alex finished, modifying the saying. Michael laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "I think Riverdale might be good for us after all." 2 weeks passed, and the atmosphere at Riverdale High had shifted dramatically. The video of the confrontation had gone viral within the school community, shared and reshared despite administration attempts to contain it. But more importantly, the power dynamic had changed. Without Carson, Damon, and Tyler prowling the halls, students walked more freely. Conversations were louder, laughter more genuine. Kids who'd spent years navigating around the bullies' territorial claims suddenly found themselves able to exist without constant vigilance. Alex had become something of a legend, though she tried to avoid the attention. Students she'd never met nodded respectfully in the halls. Freshmen looked at her with awe. Even some teachers seemed to regard her differently, with a mixture of wariness and respect. "You're like a celebrity," Noah said at lunch, gesturing to the number of students stealing glances at their table. "A scary celebrity, but still." "I don't want to be a celebrity," Alex replied, poking at her lunch. "I just wanted to be left alone." "Yeah, well, that ship has sailed," Megan added, joining them with her tray. "But seriously, do you know what you've done? People are actually standing up for themselves now. Yesterday, Jenny Collins told Brad Morrison to stop copying her homework. Jenny Collins! She hasn't spoken above a whisper since middle school." "That's good, I guess." "It's more than good," Noah said earnestly. "You changed things, actually changed them." The conversation was interrupted by an unexpected visitor. Jennifer, Alex's chemistry partner, approached hesitantly. "Alex, could I ask you something?" "Sure." Jennifer fidgeted with her backpack strap. "That self-defense class you mentioned to Principal Vaughan, Is that really happening? Mr. Abernathy is working on getting it approved. Would I be able to join? I mean, I'm not athletic or anything, but anyone can learn to protect themselves, Alex assured her. It's not about being athletic. It's about understanding your options. Jennifer smiled, the expression transforming her usually anxious face. Thanks, after years of feeling helpless, maybe it's time to change that. After she left, Megan leaned in. See, you're not just a scary celebrity, you're an inspiration. When Carson, Damon, and Tyler returned from suspension, the school held its collective breath. Everyone expected retaliation, some form of revenge for their humiliation. But the three boys seemed subdued, avoiding Alex entirely. They still commanded their table in the cafeteria, still wore their Letterman jackets like armor, but the fear they'd once inspired had diminished. The change was most notable in Carson. Where once he'd stalked the halls like an apex predator, now he moved with careful awareness of his surroundings. He attended his mandatory counseling sessions. He stopped the casual intimidation that had been his calling card. On his third day back, he approached Alex after school. She tensed, ready for confrontation, but his body language was different, hands visible, posture non-threatening. I want to join the self-defense class, he said without preamble. Alex studied him, searching for the trick, the trap. Why? Because you beat me. Easily. I've been wrestling since I was 6, thought I knew how to fight. But you? He paused, seeming to struggle with the words. You showed me I don't know anything about real fighting, about control. The class isn't about fighting, it's about not fighting. I know. That's what I need to learn. His voice dropped. I don't want to be the person who puts another Daniel King in the hospital. The admission hung between them, raw and unexpected. The first lesson is tonight, Alex said finally. 7 o'clock in the auxiliary gym. Don't be late. Carson nodded and walked away, leaving Alex to wonder if people really could change, or if this was just another game with rules she hadn't learned yet. The first self-defense class drew 40 students, far more than the auxiliary gym was designed to hold. Mr. Abernathy had to turn people away, promising a waiting list for the next session. The attendees were diverse, freshmen who looked terrified, seniors who'd spent 4 years as victims, athletes wanting to learn real fighting, and surprisingly, Carson, who stood in the back trying to be inconspicuous. Alex stood at the front, her father beside her. Michael had agreed to help teach, bringing his professional expertise to the class. Welcome, Alex began, her voice carrying clearly through the gym. Before we start, I want to be clear about what this class is and isn't. This is not Fight Club. We're not here to create warriors or feed anyone's power fantasies. We're here to learn protection of ourselves and others. She paused, making eye contact with various students. The first rule of self-defense is awareness. Most confrontations can be avoided if you see them coming. The second rule is de-escalation. Your words and body language can prevent more fights than your fists ever will. The third rule, Michael continued, taking over smoothly, is that if you must defend yourself, you do so with appropriate force and then disengage. We're not teaching you to win fights. We're teaching you to survive them and walk away. The class began with basics: stance, balance, breathing. Michael demonstrated while Alex moved through the students, correcting positions. When she reached Carson, she expected resistance, but he accepted her corrections without complaint, actually seeming eager to learn. Your wrestling stance is too aggressive, she told him quietly. It telegraphs your intentions. Try this instead. She adjusted his position and he held it, muscles trembling with the unfamiliar posture. It feels wrong, he admitted. That's because you're used to attacking. This is about being ready for anything, defense, offense, or walking away. An hour later, the students were sweating but energized. They'd learned basic blocks, how to break common holds, and most importantly, how to project confidence that might deter attackers. As the class dispersed, Jennifer approached Alex. "Thank you. I already feel different, less like a victim." "You were never a victim," Alex corrected. "You were just someone who hadn't learned their options yet." Over the following weeks, the self-defense class became the most popular extracurricular at Riverdale High. The waiting list grew to over 100 students. Parents began calling, asking if their children could attend. The school board, perhaps influenced by recent events and the threat of lawsuits, approved funding for equipment and additional sessions. Carson became a regular attendee, and his transformation was remarkable. He helped newer students with techniques, using his wrestling knowledge to demonstrate how traditional sports fighting differed from self-defense. His friends, Damon and Tyler, eventually joined too, though with considerably less enthusiasm. One evening, after a particularly intense class focusing on escaping multiple attackers, Carson lingered as others filed out. "I owe you an apology," he said to Alex, the words seemingly painful. "Not just for that day, but for everything. The way I've treated people, the person I was." "Was?" Alex asked. "I'm trying not to be anymore," he corrected. "My counselor says recognition is the first step. She also says I should make amends where possible. Daniel King deserves that apology more than I do." Carson's face darkened with shame. "I tried. His family won't take my calls. Can't blame them." "Actions have consequences," Alex said, not unkindly. "Some things can't be fixed with words." "I know, but I'm trying to be better, to do better." He paused. "That palm strike you used on me, could you teach me that? Not to use on anyone, just I want to understand how you generate that much force with such a small movement." Despite her reservations, Alex found herself explaining the technique, the proper alignment of body and energy. Carson listened intently, practicing the movement slowly, respectfully. Later, as Alex helped her father pack up the equipment, Michael observed, "He's trying to change. Maybe, or maybe he's just adapting to new circumstances." "Isn't that what change is?" Michael asked. "Adapting, evolving, becoming something different than you were. You think people can really change that fundamentally?" Michael was quiet for a moment. "I did. I was angry, violent, lost in the cage and out of it. Then I met your mother, had you, and realized I wanted to be something more than just a fighter. Carson's young. If he genuinely wants to change, now's the time." Spring arrived early in Riverdale, bringing with it the frenetic energy of approaching graduation. College acceptance letters arrived, senior pranks were planned and executed with varying degrees of success, and the social hierarchies that had seemed so permanent began to dissolve in the face of impending adulthood. Alex had been accepted to UC Berkeley, her father's alma mater, with a partial scholarship for academic excellence. The irony wasn't lost on her that the same transcript that showed her upheavals and transfers had ultimately impressed admissions committees looking for resilience and diverse experiences. Noah was bound for MIT, his coding skills and perfect math scores opening doors he'd only dreamed of. Megan had landed a spot at New York University's Tisch School for Drama, surprising no one who'd seen her perform. Even Carson had college plans, though his wrestling scholarship to State had been reconsidered after his suspension. He'd ultimately received an offer from a smaller school, contingent on continued counseling and a clean disciplinary record. "It's probably for the best," he admitted to Alex during one of their training sessions. "State would have been more of the same, me being the big fish, thinking I was invincible. Maybe starting smaller, humbler, is what I need." The self-defense classes had evolved into something more than just physical training. They'd become a community, a safe space where students could discuss their fears, their experiences with bullying, their hopes for the future. Michael had started bringing in guest instructors, a female police officer to discuss assault prevention, a psychologist to talk about trauma and recovery, even a lawyer to explain self-defense laws and victims' rights. Daniel King returned for one class. His appearance was unannounced, arranged quietly between Mr. Abernathy and Daniel's parents. He walked in during warm-ups, and the gym fell silent as recognition spread. Daniel looked different, older, warier, a slight asymmetry to his face where the orbital fracture hadn't healed perfectly. Carson went white when he saw him, freezing mid-stretch. Damon and Tyler looked like they wanted to flee. The tension in the room was suffocating. "Daniel," Mr. Abernathy said warmly, breaking the silence, "thank you for coming." Daniel nodded, his eyes scanning the room before landing on Alex. "You're the one who finally stood up to them." "I just defended myself," Alex replied. "No," Daniel said firmly. "You did what I couldn't. You changed things." He looked at Carson, who couldn't meet his eyes. "I heard you've been attending counseling." "Yeah," Carson managed, his voice barely audible. "Good." Daniel turned to address the class. "I didn't come here for apologies or confrontations. I came because Mr. Abernathy thought sharing my story might help someone, and because I needed to see that things had actually changed." For the next hour, Daniel spoke about his experience, not just the assault, but the aftermath. The fear that followed him, the therapy he'd needed, the way violence had rippled through his entire family. He spoke about recovery, about learning to trust again, about not letting victimhood define him. "The thing about bullies," he said, looking directly at Carson, "is that they create victims who sometimes become bullies themselves, perpetuating the cycle. Or they create people so afraid that they never fully live. Breaking that cycle takes courage, whether it's standing up to bullies like Alex did, or choosing to change like some of you are trying to do." When he finished, the applause was subdued but genuine. As the class ended and students filed out, Carson approached Daniel. Alex couldn't hear their conversation, but she saw Daniel listen, nod once, and walk away. Carson stood alone for a long moment, then left without a word. "What did he say to him?" Alex asked Mr. Abernathy, who'd been close enough to hear. "He said he'd never forgive him, but he hoped Carson would become someone worthy of forgiveness from his future victims." The weeks leading to graduation flew by in a blur of finals, senior events, and bittersweet lasts. The self-defense class held its final session the week before graduation, with over 100 students cycling through to say goodbye and demonstrate what they'd learned. Principal Vaughan attended, along with several school board members, though notably not Mr. Williams, who'd resigned his position following a scandal involving misuse of school funds that had mysteriously come to light through anonymous tips. "This program has transformed our school culture," Principal Vaughan said, addressing the gathered students and parents. "Bullying incidents are down 70%. Academic performance is up across all grades. And most importantly, our students feel safer, more empowered." She announced that the program would continue next year with advanced students helping to teach beginners. A scholarship fund had been established in Daniel King's name for students who showed exceptional courage in standing up to bullying. As the formal presentation ended and people mingled, Alex found herself standing with her father, watching the students practice techniques they'd learned. "You did this," Michael said quietly. "You created something positive from something terrible." "We did this," Alex corrected. "And really, they did it themselves. They just needed someone to show them it was possible." Carson approached them, his parents notably absent. "Mr. Chen, Alex, I wanted to thank you both for everything, for the second chance I didn't deserve." "Everyone deserves a second chance," Michael said. "Not everyone takes it. You did." "I'm trying," Carson said. "I'll probably be trying for the rest of my life to make up for who I was." "That's not a bad thing," Alex told him. The day you stop trying is the day you stop growing. Graduation day dawned bright and clear, the kind of California morning that belonged in postcards. The football field had been transformed into an outdoor auditorium, white chairs in perfect rows, a stage decorated with blue and gold flowers. Alex sat with her class, cap and gown making everyone look identical, erasing the social divisions that had seemed so important months ago. Noah sat to her left, already planning their summer road trip to visit colleges. Megan was on her right, barely containing her excitement about moving to New York. The valedictorian speech was given by Jennifer, the quiet chemistry partner who'd found her voice in self-defense class. She spoke about transformation, about courage being contagious, about how one person standing up could inspire hundreds to rise. When Principal Vaughn called Alex's name, the applause was thunderous. Students stood, even Carson and his friends, acknowledging what she'd meant to their school. Alex accepted her diploma, shook hands and returned to her seat, uncomfortable with the attention but understanding its significance. After the ceremony, families gathered for pictures and tearful goodbyes. Alex stood with her father, watching the chaos of celebration around them. "No more running," Michael said, a statement rather than a question. "No more running," Alex agreed. "Berkeley's close enough to visit, and I think Riverdale's become home." Mr. Abernathy appeared, still in his academic robes from sitting with the faculty. "Alex, a moment." He handed her an envelope. "Letter of recommendation for Berkeley's martial arts program. I may have mentioned your unique qualifications and teaching experience." "Thank you," Alex said, genuinely touched. "For everything. For being there that day, for sponsoring the class, for believing things could change." "I should thank you," he replied. "I've been teaching for 15 years, watching bullies create victims year after year, feeling helpless to stop it. You showed me that change is possible. It just takes someone with the courage to catalyst it." As the crowds began to disperse, Carson found Alex one last time. "I know we'll probably never be friends," he said, "but I wanted you to know that you saved me. Not from you that day. You were never going to really hurt me. You saved me from becoming someone worse, someone who would have eventually gone too far." He extended his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Alex shook it. "Take care, Carson. Make your second chance count." "Every day," he promised, then disappeared into the crowd of graduates. The summer passed quickly, filled with preparation for college, final self-defense classes, and saying goodbye to Riverdale. Alex and Michael had decided to keep their apartment as a base, a place to return to during breaks. On her last night before leaving for Berkeley, Alex stood in the training room, looking at the heavy bag that had absorbed so much of her anger and fear over the months. The apartment no longer smelled of paint and newness. It smelled like home. "Ready?" Michael asked from the doorway. "For college?" "I think so." "For everything else?" She shrugged. "I'll figure it out as I go." "That's all any of us do," he said. "But you're better prepared than most, not because of the fighting skills, but because you understand when to use them and when not to." "The best victory," she began, "is the one that makes future victories unnecessary," Michael finished, modifying their saying once again. The next morning, as they drove toward Berkeley and her future, Alex thought about the journey that had brought them here. 3 schools in 2 years, each move prompted by violence and failure. But Riverdale had been different. In Riverdale, she'd found not just a place to finish high school, but a purpose. Her phone buzzed with messages from the group chat Noah had created for the self-defense class alumni. Photos of new students arriving at various colleges, updates on summer adventures, plans for reunions, even a message from Carson, a simple "thank you for everything" with a photo of him at his new school's counseling center. "You know," Alex said to her father as they merged onto the highway, I used to think strength was about being able to fight. Now I think it's about knowing when fighting isn't the answer. And when it is, Michael asked, when it protects those who can't protect themselves, when it breaks cycles of violence rather than perpetuating them, when it creates space for change. Michael smiled, pride evident in his expression. Your mother would have been so proud of who you've become. She would have been terrified by that fight, Alex laughed. Terrified, yes, but proud that you used only the force necessary, that you offered alternatives, that you turned violence into teaching. He paused. She always said you'd change the world. She just probably didn't imagine it would start in a high school parking lot. As Riverdale disappeared in the rearview mirror, Alex thought about the students who would return to school in the fall, walking halls that were safer because she'd stood her ground. She thought about the self-defense classes that would continue, teaching generations of students that they had options beyond victimhood or violence. She thought about Carson, struggling with redemption, but committed to the effort. About Daniel, healing and sharing his story to prevent others suffering. About Jennifer, finding her voice, and Noah and Megan, walking taller because they'd learned they could protect themselves. Change, real change, didn't come from winning fights. It came from showing others they didn't have to fight at all, or that if they did, they could do so with honor, restraint, and purpose. The highway stretched ahead, leading to Berkeley, to new challenges, to a future where she could use her skills to continue breaking cycles and building bridges. Behind her, Riverdale continued its own transformation, a small town where one girl's stand had rippled outward like stones in water, touching lives in ways she'd never fully know. But that's how real change worked, not in dramatic victories or single moments of triumph, but in the slow, steady work of showing people they could be more than their worst impulses, stronger than their fears, better than their histories. As the California landscape rolled by, Alex allowed herself a small smile. She'd started the school year as just another new kid, trying to stay invisible, to survive until graduation. She was leaving as someone who'd made a difference, who'd turned personal trauma into collective healing. The best victory, she realized, wasn't the one you never had to fight for. It was the one that ensured others would never have to fight the same battle. And in Riverdale, at least, that victory had been won.